I start, I'm going to ask if you don't already follow me to follow, like, hit the notification bell. I don't know why people always say that, but they do. So I'm just going to say it so you guys know when I have new podcasts coming out. But it really does help if you subscribe. So the goal of this podcast, as some of you know, is to help us moms find and use science-backed strategies to help us mom better. And it's no secret that moms do it all. And I want to help moms develop action plans they can put into place to really improve their well-being. So today's podcast is just a little bit different. We are going to talk about some things we can do to help with our well-being. But it's the start of a new category that I'm calling super moms. And I think as moms, we're really all super moms, but we really build strength and motivation by seeing other moms who are successful. But also having frank conversations on the struggles that we experience along the way. It's so important in today's world to really talk in a transparent way about what we go through as moms, because we're just constantly inundated on social media with these like beautiful Instagram aesthetics of mom life and these moms who just seem to like float through effortlessly. And we just know that's not the case. And I think a lot of times we compare ourselves to that. So it's important to have a real conversation. So today I have the pleasure of introducing Kim Hampton, who is actually my former boss. She has moved on to a new season of her life after obtaining her PhD and is now a nurse educator at the professor level. So congratulations again on that. It's still very new. And Kim, I will let you share a bit about yourself, your family, what you do, all of that good stuff.
Okay, thank you. So thanks. Let me just thank you, Brielle, for having me and deciding to feature me as one of the super moms, which is an honor. And like you said, I do agree that we're definitely all super moms because there's a lot that we do. But as you said, my name is Kimberly Hampton. What about me? Let's see. As Brielle said, I'm now an academic professor of nursing. I have two beautiful daughters, 9-year-old Brooklyn and Campbell, who'll be 6 at the end of December. They keep me very busy and help with my lack of sleep. I'll say that. And I also have a bull mastiff who's almost 2. So Pablo, my fur baby, I take care of him as well. I recently just came and moved back to my home state of Maryland. I was in Pennsylvania for about 15 years. Before deciding to move back just to be closer to family. And as my girls get older and have more activities and acknowledging that you can't be 2 places at once, I just wanted to be closer to family and to have that support, but also so that my girls would grow up near their cousins and their aunts and their uncles. So I think that's really important. So that's a little bit about my personal life. I know we'll talk, more about my professional life, but that's kind of me in a nutshell.
Great. And I'm so happy that you talked about your fur baby because I was thinking to myself, gosh, I hope my fur babies are behaving themselves. I locked them, everybody's locked up. They're locked in a room. My son, this is going to be for everybody. This will be like a true mom podcast because we both have kids homesick today. Dan fell asleep at 11 o'clock and is in his room sleeping during this, but I have the monitor. So if at any point there's like a cut in this and then we're like talking again, it's because one of us had to tend to a dog or a child or whatever, which it's just the way it is. So with that being said, I thought it would be fun to really wrestle with the idea of the whole concept of moms having it all. And with that, we can kind of talk a little bit about your professional career as well, because from an outsider looking in, you appear to be a mom who does have it all. You have 2 kids, 2 wonderful kids. You have a full-time, well, let's bounce back a couple months ago, a full-time job, having a successful career, while working on your PhD to start another successful career, kids, the whole 9. And I guess the question is, do you feel like there's this constant reach of moms trying to have it all? And what does that even mean? And do we really want it? Do we want it all?
Yeah. So when you told me that we were going to be talking about that, I had to just sit and think to myself, what does that actually mean to me?
Yeah.
Years ago, I would have said, it meant having the perfect family, the husband, the kids, everybody's smiling, everybody's happy. We go on vacations, we have enough money, and all
Yeah.
of that. And now as I get older and, experience life, to me, it just means being happy and joyful,
Yeah.
and having a happy and joyful family. Because like you said, nobody is perfect, and nobody has that perfect life, regardless of what we see on Instagram and Facebook. So, life has happened and I've definitely evolved, and we can talk a little bit more about that. But I realize now that it just means finding the joy in each day, and just being content and happy with where you are at the moment, because you evolve as you grow and your family grows. And so to me, it doesn't necessarily mean having that perfect family unit. My husband and I right now are separated, which is not something that I anticipated or expected. I had never thought I would be here, but at this point in my life, I feel like I have all that I need to be a good mom to my girls, and be a support, and just trying to find joy in each day. So that's what it means to me. So right now, I do think you can have it all, but I think that definition of having it all is very personal to each person, and that we should not base that off of what other people are doing or what other people have. So I think that's very important.
I love that. And I love that you said that it's evolved, because as you said that, it was like a light bulb moment for me, that I feel exactly that same way. Like when I was younger, in my 20s, and I thought I'd be married by 28 with a white picket fence by 30, my first child, it doesn't happen that way. First of all, I didn't meet the man of my dreams until I was 30. So that like pushed everything back, so it's never it never goes the way that you think it's going to go. I think it does, maybe for some people. I have a friend who met her significant other at 19. They were married at 20. They're still happily married in love. They have 3 kids. They're almost done. Their kids are in their teens. So they're about ready to start traveling and, whatever. But I think that's rare. I think that that's the exception. And most people take this kind of rigid path everywhere. And what you said was so important. And I want other moms to just pause and take that in, is day by day, just finding joy in each day. Because I think we all are always looking ahead and saying, well, once this happens, I'll be happy. Personally, for me, once I finish my master's, I'll feel really happy. Once, Dan starts walking, I'll be happy. And that's such I don't want to use the word toxic, but it's a hard place to live. And I think we do it to ourselves all the time. So you saying that, I just want other moms to just pause and think on that. What things can you find each day that brings you joy? Yes, maybe you're not in the house that you want to be in right now. We're in a 1,000-foot square house that we thought we were going to flip and buy a bigger house 5 years ago, and we're still here. Kim, you're in a transition period right now. I hope you don't mind that I share.
I know.
You're living at your sister's while your house is closing. And imagine if you just thought to yourself, well, I'll be happy when I move into that house. That's, it's hard to live that way. So what you said was so important.
Yeah, it's that destination happiness. Like you feel like your happiness is always at a different destination, and you never really find it because there's always some other place where you feel like you need to be.
Right.
So yes, my life has taken a very different path than what I thought. When I first applied for my PhD program, initially, I was not married. I did not have any children. And I, at the time, they told me no. They said, no, you did not get into our program.
Oh my gosh.
So I called the director, and I had to leave a message and just said, I'd like some feedback on, how I can improve, because I definitely want to be in the program and I will be reapplying next year. So if you can just let me know,
Yeah.
what impacted your decision, that will be helpful. And she took about a week or two to respond. And within that time frame, I'd actually just gotten engaged. Actually, I found out I was pregnant. So
Oh,
she called me
wow.
back and said, well, actually, we're making our cohort a little bit larger and we do want to offer you acceptance. And I said, oh, that's great. But
Oh, wow.
I'd like to delay that enrollment now because I just found out I was pregnant. So,
Oh my gosh. I didn't know that. That's such a
yeah.
funny story. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So I ended up actually starting my program in 2014 when my oldest daughter was about 8 months old.
Wow.
So I started with an 8-month-old, and I finished when she was almost 9. So, and in the meantime, I had actually also had another baby, her younger sister, during that program. So it took me about 9 years to finish my program. But during that time, my mother was diagnosed with breast cancer and went through radiation and chemotherapy and surgery. She was in Maryland, I was in Pennsylvania. Towards the end there, we had the pandemic. My husband announced that he was unhappy and he was leaving.
Oh my
That
gosh.
happened,
Yeah.
right towards the end. And so navigating all of that was very difficult. And, it took a lot of different turns. And I was the person who, during my program, I would always say, things will get better when we have more money. Things will
Right.
get better when I'm finished my program. Things will get better when the kids get older and we can get back to dating,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
those were some of the things that I think impacted my relationship as well. And so I think that as moms, and I was definitely in survival mode during this whole time, each
Yeah.
day I was just surviving. And I
Yeah.
found that I wasn't really taking care of myself, which one of the best things that came out of my husband announcing that he was leaving was me realizing that, oh my God, I don't like the person that I am. Who did I
Wow.
turn into?
Yeah. Yeah.
My girls were fine. They had everything that they needed.
Right.
But my relationship suffered as well as my personal self-care suffered. So I think we were both just going through the motions, and I was always working full time. And he's in a profession where his salary is very much based on projects. So he's in film and television and videos and things like that. So it was very much based on each project. So I was the breadwinner.
I was
And
gonna say, you probably felt that
yeah,
pressure of like you had that consistent, yeah, and that's
absolutely.
hard.
Yeah. And I was willing to do that because I
Yeah.
believed in his talent. And it's just, we
Right.
chose different paths. I mean, I was a nurse who usually it's very easy to find work as a nurse.
Yeah.
Paycheck. When you're on TV and film, it's kind of like they have to
Yeah.
call you. And, so, but I believed in his talents. I was very willing to do that. He had some guilt around that as well. And I think that we thought that we communicated well when we really didn't.
And that's why I was gonna ask you if that's like the managing expectations. I feel like he's maybe expecting you to act a certain way, you're expecting him to act a certain way, and there's always that like missed communication.
Yeah.
What did you, I guess, looking back on it, what are some ways maybe you could have communicated better? Like,
Yeah.
to I don't know, just looking back.
Yeah, looking back, and people would say, oh, you guys are so happy. I mean, when we used to go out periodically, because we didn't go
Yeah.
out that often just because of not having babysitters, the server would come up to our table and they'd be like, you guys look so happy, because we would enjoy each other when we were out. It was like
Yeah.
a break from reality. But when we were home, when we were talking about things like doing the dishes, taking out the recycling, we both felt like we were doing a lot. So when that other
Yeah.
person came to us and was like, this is what I need from you, the other person was ready to respond and defend themselves rather than really acknowledging what your partner needed. So that came out. And, after he announced that he wanted to leave, that really came out. And we saw that where we thought we could talk about anything because we were good friends as well,
Yeah.
we couldn't because we were
Right.
always defensive. So
Right.
we've really been working on, because we're still good friends and we're, looking at reconciling, and, we still do things as a family for the girls.
Mhm.
But that's one of the things that's really difficult and that we're really working on. We have different love languages. And
Mhm.
initially he was like, we have different love languages. We're just not compatible. And me, I'm like, we have different love languages, but you just have to be willing to love
Right.
the person in the way they need to be loved. If you want it
Right.
to
Because
work,
you
that's what
love
you
each
do.
other. Yeah. It's not that you don't
Nobody
love
is
each other.
right. Yes.
Yeah.
Nobody is exactly the same, no matter when your
No.
birthday is, no matter when your love language is. So it's
Right.
just, relationships take work, even the best ones.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So that's one of the things that, we're working on through therapy, is just, even though it may be difficult to hear those things about yourself,
Yeah.
and to hear that you might have done something that hurt that person that you love, you have to take it in and, look at yourself. And that's what I've been doing. I've been looking at myself and
Yeah.
identifying, what kind of person do I want to be? What could I have done differently? And, you look at these people who, you think they operate at a higher frequency than everybody else. And I always thought, oh, these people they don't have things going on. They don't
Right.
have bills that you might have forgotten to pay, or the car that breaks down when you have a long road trip, or, the
Yeah.
kids that get sick when you have a meeting that you have to be in,
Right. Right.
but in reality, they do. It's
Mhm.
just in how they respond to it maybe differently. They don't completely fall apart. They take it in, they take a deep breath, and they
They
move
move
forward. And
on.
that's the kind of person that I'm trying to be. It's just not being so reactive, and just being mindful, being in the moment, not thinking about, the thousands of things that I have to do, but rather think about the one thing I want to get done right now, work on
Yeah.
that, and then move on to the next thing.
Yeah.
Um,
These are all such good tools, like in general. And I'm gonna actually, everything that you've mentioned so many good tools. So as I go through and watch this again, I'm going to like bullet point things in the comments, because it's great. And I think that what you said about being well, you didn't use the word accountable, but that's what it is being
Absolutely.
accountable. I think a lot of times as moms, we can get into that mode of poor me, poor me, poor me. I have so much to do. I have to do all the dishes. I have to do this. I have to do that. And that may be the case. I know me, a lot of times I'm guilty of forgetting the things that my husband does. He has other things that he does. So
Yeah.
I'm annoyed that maybe he didn't come home from work and load the dishwasher, this or that, but he had something else that he was doing, and then not communicating it. If I would have just said like, hey, do you mind loading the dishwasher? And he would have said, oh, well, I have X, Y, and Z. But instead, I'm just mad he didn't do it,
Yeah.
So like, but actually taking that and looking inward and being accountable and not falling into that like poor me mom mode. I think, yes, we have a lot on our plate as moms. We're expected to do a lot in society. We're expected to work full time, manage a household, be great wives, all of this stuff. But if you're constantly just focusing on poor me, then you're going to be miserable. So the fact that you were able to, instead of finding offense that he said, I'm not happy anymore, whatever, and looking at yourself first is just such a valuable, what's the word I'm looking for? Not action step, but like just a valuable thing to be able to look retrospectively into yourself. And I think moms forget to do that because we feel bad for ourselves a lot. Sometimes that's okay. I think sometimes it's okay to feel bad for ourselves, but I think that there's a toxic culture around that, honestly.
Yeah. And, and it's hard. It's really hard to look at yourself. It's super hard.
Yes.
And also I just think, we're human. We get frustrated. For example, I was frustrated this morning when my daughter was sick, she threw up, and I was like, oh,
again, yeah.
Granted, I felt horrible that she threw up and didn't feel well. And
Right.
my decision was she was staying home no matter what, it wasn't like the just going to give her some Tylenol and see what she gets through. Cause I
Right.
didn't want her to progress at school and then,
No.
you know, not want to lay down and not be able to.
Yeah.
But I had that moment of frustration, you know, my day was planned and now it's unplanned.
Yeah. Unplanned.
And, you know, but I let myself feel that frustration and then I just worked through it and just, you know, took on,
Yeah.
just went on. And one of the things I just wanted to share that I also think is important that we do as moms is just to also acknowledge that how we grew up impacts how we mom. And that's something that I kind of discovered in therapy that has also impacted my relationship. Yeah. I mean, growing up, I saw a mom who did everything. I mean, I'm the youngest of 5. My mom and dad don't have the greatest relationship. They're still married, but my dad was the one who was always working. He wasn't one who like came to family function or everything, but my mom, you know, she cooked, she worked. She was also a nurse. You know, she came to all of our games or our recitals. She took us to practice. I never saw her go out with her friends until I was like an adult, like in the last 5 years.
Wow.
And so that's not something that I kind of valued. I would go out with my girlfriends periodically, but I found that for myself, that's something that I need. I need to make time to be with my friends. And because I didn't see my mom do that, I think I felt like that wasn't something I should prioritize.
Or something you deserve. Maybe you didn't. You deserve.
So, you know, I'm rediscovering kind of what I need as an adult to replenish myself. I'm learning, you know, self-care, and it's just as important for me to take care of myself as it is for me to take care of my girls and my family, because without taking care of yourself, of course, we know we can't take care of others.
Right.
But I also found that like I never saw my parents say thank you to each other either for anything. So it was just expected that, you know, my mom would do the cooking, that my dad would, you know, come home and take out the trash. So my husband was one who thanked me for, you know, thank you for going out to dinner with me, or thank you for doing this. And I'm like, why are you thanking me? I'm supposed to do that. You know, that's not, and that would be like a term of conflict for us. And I would in turn forget to thank him for things that he did. So I would in turn forget to say, you know, thanks for washing the dishes. Thanks for taking out the trash, because those things to me were expected. But I think one of the things that I'm learning about myself is that I need to acknowledge people need to be filled up just as much as I need to be filled up. And so even if I expect him to do that, acknowledge it and be grateful and say thank you for doing that. Because like you said, they may be busy as well, but they took the time out to help out at home. So
I love, I think that's great. And that's such a good thing to just thank your partner, because we're so busy doing so many things all the time. And that little bit makes that person feel so much better. It might avoid conflict in the future, even, you know, maybe I know there's been times like we've been upset about something and maybe I do something for him or he does something for me, and we show appreciation, and it kind of will just even like, it'll stop that issue that we were having, that like other little issue, because we sat and took, it was almost like a replay almost, or like a re-up. And it's like, okay, let me just forget about that. It was stupid what we were arguing about anyway. Wow, I really realized that this person cares about me. They're thanking me. They're showing appreciation. And that's huge. I think that's so huge. Yeah, that's great. So with that, continuing on a little bit with discussing your significant other and, you know, people with their significant other and being a mom and working, what are some things that you feel moms, let me phrase this properly. Hold on, let me think. I might have to cut this part because I can't phrase it quite properly. We're always busy being moms, right? Like we're making sure our kids have everything they need, our, you know, whatever. What strategies do you have to also show your husband appreciation and, you know, maybe make time for them, I guess? Like, what are some things that you would do to show that appreciation? Besides, like, yeah, of course, you guys could go out on dates and things like that. What are some other things that you do?
Yeah. Well, let me just preface it and say, I do think it's very important to date, to continue to date, because I think it's very easy for parents to forget that. You know, you schedule activities with the kids, going to the farm, doing all this stuff, and you forget to schedule time alone with yourself. So
I like that.
I think it's right,
Schedule.
very important to schedule it and stick to it, you know,
Okay.
barring any emergencies like
Right.
or stuff, you know,
Right.
or stuff like that. But so I think it's very important for that. I used to, whenever my husband would travel a lot, I used to put little notes in his suitcase before he left so that he would find them when he left, you know, just saying, you know, that I miss him and, you know, wishing him well on the trip or whatever it was about. And I knew that he always read them and he would be happy. And then I would find them like, you know, on the floor in the corner or whatever. So, and I didn't know, like, did he like that or did he not? But I know now he recently shared with me that he liked that. So that was one of the things that, that I would do. So those are some of the things that I like for myself.
Yeah.
But one of the things I really think that is really important is to kind of find out what your partner likes and not be afraid to ask. I think when we're in a relationship, we get into this mode where, you know, everything is perfect and this person should, because we're meant to be or we're together, they should read my mind and know how I like to be treated. And, you know, that was something that I think we fell into, that, you know, if this is meant to be, it'll work out and they'll do exactly what I need them to do. And they'll give me exactly what I need to feel fulfilled. And
it's almost funny as you
no, that's not it. It's okay to share, you know, I kind of like, you know, I liked when you do this, or, you know, I like these particular books or whatever. And maybe you might want to, you know, buy that book or something like that, you know. So I know that my husband is he's a big photographer. He takes lots and lots of pictures, especially of our girls. And some of them are very artistic.
Oh, cool.
So another thing I like to do is just like print them out, because he always forgets to print them out. And he's always like, oh, I need to print this out. And one year I got him a canvas for Father's Day of the girls. And it was like, they were walking into like the woods we were on like a walk, and it was, the leaves were on the ground. They were changing colors and it was just their backs. And he just talked about how he loved that, because it was like, you know, they were walking into the unknown together. No matter what, they had each other. That's what it symbolized for him. I got that particular picture on a canvas. That was something that, you know, he really liked and appreciated. So I just try and listen to little things that he says, even though it may not be something that, you know, kind of makes me feel good. If it's something that he likes, then those are some of the little things that I like to do to just show appreciation and to, you know, try
show
and
that gratitude too, that appreciating gratitude. And so like shifting back to being, I don't want to use the word selfish, but sometimes you do have to be selfish as a mom, like shifting back to showing gratitude for yourself. And what you said was so important with scheduling time with your significant other, scheduling time for yourself, right? To make sure that you're getting what you need with like your self-care. So what I'll ask you is, like, you know, busy working mom, successful professional, how, and kind of jumping back to like while you were doing your PhD, because in my opinion, you were working on your PhD, had a full-time job, you were a mom, that's 3 full-time jobs in like a 24-hour period. So it's like you had 3 full-time jobs. So how did you manage it all? Did you really feel like you managed it? Like, I use the word manage, but did you really feel like you managed it all? And then how did you get through? And you know, were you always kind of in that fight or flight mode, or were there times where you felt like you were, man, I got this, I'm really doing the thing, I guess?
So one of the things I have to share is that, as I mentioned, it took me almost 9 years. But I decided very early on in my journey of my PhD that there were certain things that I was not going to miss with my kids. You know, when you first start the PhD, they have they have orientation, they have like panel discussions of PhD students who talk about their experience. And they're from, you know, they are at all different parts of their lives. So there are some people who, you know, are young, right out of their masters, don't have any kids, don't have any, like, you know, real financial obligations. They may still be living at home or have that financial support from their parents. There are some who have kids, you know, working full time. And And there are just others that, different situations. And one person told a story of how, she was working on her dissertation and she hadn't eaten in days and her family was bringing her groceries and her house was a mess. And I just said, you know what? That's
Not
not
me.
me.
Yeah.
I was like,
Ooh.
if it takes me longer to do this, and I'm going to be like, if my daughters have something at school, I'm going to be there. That was my decision. I know that
Yeah.
there were some people who just, miss things and everything, but that was one of the things I accepted.
And you were patient and saw it through. Like, that's
Yeah.
amazing,
And it wasn't easy because, I was in a cohort of about, I think we started out maybe around 12 or 13. And when it all came down, maybe there was like 10 maybe, and
Okay.
people dropped out for various reasons. And I was one of the last to finish. Like, I think there are like maybe 2 other people who hadn't finished.
Yeah.
One had a medical issue. So, and the other one, I'm not sure why she hadn't finished yet, but it was difficult to see my classmates finish.
Yeah.
But I told
That's
myself,
hard. That's
yeah,
hard
it
because
was
you
really
like judge
difficult.
yourself and you shouldn't, but like you do. I feel.
Yeah. And, when I had my second child during the program, I basically took a semester off without being out of the program, kind of. I didn't do
Gotcha.
very much.
Right.
But one of the things about the PhD program is once you finish your coursework, it's self-paced. So it was very much on me to get it done. Towards the end, I was very motivated to get it done. And thankfully or unthankfully, I think that was because of things that were going on in my life. I was
Mhm.
able to use my dissertation as an escape. So
Yeah.
when I was doing my dissertation, I was able to just do my dissertation and focus on that.
Mhm.
And one of the things I found helpful was, and I don't mean for anybody to do this, because when you're doing something like this, you really have to find what works for you. So
Mhm.
don't, compare yourself to anybody else. If it works for you, it works for you. I'm not a morning person.
Mhm.
So there are some classmates who got up, before their kids got up, for example, at 5 a.m. and wrote for 2 hours before waking their kids up for school.
Right.
I wasn't
That's
doing
not
that.
you.
I'm more of a night owl. So
Yeah.
what worked for me was, during my full-time day at work, making sure my girls were fine, that they were in bed, and then writing at night.
So let me stop you right there. I'm going to ask a personal question and personal for me, personal advice.
Yeah.
You're momming all day, you're working all day, you put the kids to bed. What helps motivate you to get that second wind? Because I am struggling with that right now because, as you know, I work full time.
Mm-hmm.
I take Dan to therapies after school. I'm working on my master's, but I'm in like a kind of like a little bit of a pause. I'm going to start back up.
Mm-hmm.
And then I get into bed at like 7 o'clock. And realistically, there should be like a couple hours there, right?
Yeah.
It's like I go into this tired fog, this tired phase, and I just can't push to work on like this stuff, like edit a podcast or whatever. So what helped you like get through at that time, that like weird time of the night?
Right. And don't think that every time that I told myself I was going to write that I actually did it. Because there were times when I was like, I'm going to write tonight. And I was just too tired. Like by the time the girls weren't cooperating with bedtime, or they were, coming in and out of my office 5 times because they wanted a hug and wanted to tell me they loved me just one last time.
Oh, yeah.
So there were times when I'm just like, you know what? I can't do it tonight. I'm going to bed. It just didn't work. And I gave myself grace and accepted that. But there were also times where I told myself I was going to do it and I tried to push through, and I could only do it for 30 minutes. But you know what? That was 30 more minutes than I had yesterday. So I think I may tell myself I'm going to write for 3 hours. That's my goal. But I also, sometimes it's kind of daunting to think of that. Like, I am so tired, I can't get through 3 hours. I just tell myself, I'm going to do what I can. If it turns out that it's one sentence, it's going to be one sentence more than what I did yesterday. And so I really had to give myself grace, and just knowing that whatever I did was going to be fine, I think helped me sit down to be able to write, or, sit down to be able to do, because even if it was just one thing. Right. Yeah, I felt like it's progress.
So just saying, I'm going to just do something.
Yeah. Yeah.
And sometimes it'll snowball and sometimes it won't, I guess.
Yeah. And also, I had a cousin who referred me to, it's a Facebook group It's called like, there's one called Dr. Moms, there's one called like PhD Moms or something. And it's all these moms who are trying to get their PhD or their Master's of Education, their Doctorate of Education, or all these different doctoral degrees. And sometimes just scrolling through that page helped me, because
That's such
people
a
are
good
telling their
idea.
stories. They're telling their stories. They're talking about how tired they are. They're talking about, they're showing pictures of them trying to type with one hand while they're breastfeeding. It's all these motivational things. And they're also posting, I did it, I defended, I finished, it took me 10 years, but I got there. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to post my picture on there and tell everybody when I'm done. And it's just very, I think finding little things of inspiration helps. And that was one of mine.
That's great. That's definitely something that I feel like I haven't put into action. Like I've told myself, okay, just start, but joining some type of group, or maybe like an accountability group, like a business accountability group or something like that. So yeah, thanks for giving me.
Yeah,
I was like, I'm going to take advantage.
They're writing groups, on this Facebook page. They're signing up like, I'm going to write on Zoom if anybody wants to come, and people just log in and write silently.
Yes. I recently did was it specifically for people? I think it was specifically for people with ADHD. They call it body doubling. So for people who have ADHD, and I feel like there's such like a trend, I don't want to call it a trend, but a lot of women realizing now that they have ADHD because it presents so differently than men that they're not realizing until they're older. Or they're not getting diagnosed properly or whatever. So anyway, with that, I started researching just some like coaching, and because my brain works different than other people's and I need to do things differently. And I found this body doubling group from a friend that I actually went to high school with. She's a coach for people who are neurodivergent with autism and ADHD. And I sat like this while I worked, and she just sat there and like basically watched me work. Like she was doing her thing. It happened to be that there was nobody else that day on the group. It was just me. Some days she'll have like 15 people, other days she'll have just one. And I don't think I'd ever been so productive. So just like knowing that someone's either watching you or is also working and I don't think that's just a tactic for people with ADHD. I think that helps a lot of people. Like you said, just going on that group and realizing other people. Is there a buddy over there?
Yeah, I have a little visitor here. Sorry. She's not feeling well. She's coming in to visit.
How are you feeling?
How are you feeling?
Okay. Yeah.
She had a popsicle. I see it's on her shirt. Yeah.
What is it?
She had a popsicle earlier. I see she has on her shirt.
Are you feeling a little bit better? Yeah, that's good. Oh, she's so beautiful.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I like your hairstyle.
Oh, thank you. I just curled it real quick before this podcast. I said, let me try to put myself together a little bit. I like yours. I like your cool little color, like braids and
barrettes in her hair. Yeah.
Those are cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So in that way, I do think like social media is both a blessing and a curse. It can make us feel insecure and horrible about ourselves because people post the good things, but I also think that that there's vulnerability that you can share on Facebook and just find people, or any social media really, and just find people all over the world that are in the same situation that you're in that might be able to lend some support. So I think that that's helpful, and that was one of the things that I kind of used during my journey as well.
Yeah. And that's kind of why, that's exactly, and I'll kind of loop this back before we wrap up, is that's exactly why I wanted to do a podcast like this, to show other moms, hey, here's, a mom that, yes, on the outside is like doing the thing, doing it all, but there's struggles. And I want to thank you for being so vulnerable and like sharing with us those struggles, because I really think that it helps other moms. It makes us feel like we're not alone. It makes us feel like, other people are going through the same thing. And hey, if Kim can get through it, doing, having X, Y, and Z going on, then I can do it too. And we have to do more of that as moms rather than look at the other part of social media, like you said, that, you know, the moms that appear to just not have any issues and their houses are beautiful, you know, perfect aesthetic all the time. That's the one I struggle with, that I'm like, why does my house not look like that?
Yeah.
Like, well, first of all, your house was built like 1972. So like that's the first reason.
Yeah.
But I think we just need more of real life and real moms and real struggles so that we can build a community and help us get through. So
Yeah, absolutely. Because I don't know if anybody told you before you had your baby, Dan, that you weren't going to get enough rest. You know, no one said sleep all you can now, because when you have children, you may not sleep ever again. So,
yeah.
or, you know, these are some things you need to do to make sure you take care of yourself while you have kids. It was just, oh, you're pregnant, you're having a baby, it's going to be so wonderful, let's celebrate with the baby shower. And then
Yes.
you're
And
like,
then bam.
oh my God, I can't get the baby to stop crying. How do I get her to latch? You know, it's like, no one told me it was going to be this hard.
No, we could do a whole other, like literally we could do a whole other podcast about like mom expectations and all that. So I'd love to have you back on to talk about that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That would be fun.
Well, I appreciate everything, you coming on. It was great to see you like face to face. I miss you at work.
Yeah, you too.
But I'm so happy that you're doing, you know, doing your dream, really. You know, I know you worked so hard for this. So thank you for sharing with us everything. And I appreciate having you on. I appreciate you being on.
Thank you. And I just want to commend you for having your podcast and really wanting to address real topics.
Thank you.
That
means a lot coming from you, because you're one of my role models. So
well,
you have been for a long time. So I appreciate it.
Well, thank you.
All right. Well, have a good day. Feel better.
You too.
Bye.
All right. Bye.
Bye.